Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Market Insights, a podcast where we learn about all things real estate from the experts who love and serve in their local markets each and every day. I'm your host, Howard Chung, Vice President of Franchise at John L. Scott Real Estate, and today's guest is Jordan Miller, the owner of the Seaside Market office in the amazing Oregon coast. Those of you who do not know the Oregon coast, chances are you know the Oregon coast. You've seen amazing pictures and videos, or you've visited on a regular basis, and Seaside is kind of right there at the epicenter of the Oregon coast, and it is amazing. And of course, they serve not just Seaside, but up and down all along the Oregon coast, and not just along the coast, but pretty much everywhere, all the way into Portland. So that all being said, welcome, Jordan.
Thank you for having me today, Howard.
Jordan, we're so excited to talk about coastal markets because whenever we talk about coastal markets, it's not just about like the, people who live there, love there, they grew up there, but you got so many visitors from out of town, right? Who, would love to have that second home, an investment home, an Airbnb. And, we can't get into all those kind of details, but we definitely want to talk about just what's been going on in the market, especially since COVID. I mean, I'm sure you had a massive influx of people curious about buying over there and what have you. But then, of course, we've got this market shift that's happening in 2022, 2023, and into 2024. So I'm just curious, give me a little insight as far as like right now, what's happening with the market? Is it slowed down? I'm sure the number of sales are down, but, are prices down, for example?
Yeah, so on the Coast Range, we're really seeing a lot of similar trends to what the Portland metro area market is in regards to low inventory. People seem pretty happy. People that have bought vacation homes over the past 4, 5, 6 years, they have a low interest rate. They've locked in. There's not as many, motivators to sell. So we have low inventory really up and down the entire coast. We're mostly, similar to the rest of the market. We're seeing life event sales, so people retiring, moving with family, so there's not as many listings as there used to be. That's for certain, and that's that we've continued to see prices get driven up at the coast. We're starting to see a little bit of softness in the market when it comes to properties that back to, let's say, the main highway, like Highway 101. People aren't willing to compromise as much with their dream vacation home or dream home that they're going to live in permanently at the coast. But we are still seeing high demand for inventory that's directly on the ocean, on the beach, properties with views, things like that.
Well, of course, and anybody who knows, or just as a quick search, I mean, the properties that are like right on the water, right on the beach from anywhere. I mean, anywhere from, I guess, Manzanita, right, Tillamook County, all the way on up, But then there's this one town, Astoria, right, that we're going to get a little bit more into. But before we talk about Astoria, you're talking about homes that are like starting at $2 million. I mean, maybe for the smallest piece of property that is actually on the water, but then the ones that I was seeing, like especially like near Cannon Beach, they're really like over 3 million, and these are not like mansions. These are like just nice homes, but they're over $3 million. And so I'm just kind of curious, who's buying these homes? Are they like, people from Portland, Seattle, out of California, out of the area altogether? Are these investors or just people with a lot of money? I mean, give me a little insight there.
Well, I'll start about a decade ago. There was a lot of investor presence at the Oregon coast. However, each coastal town is coming up with their own ordinance in regards to allowing short-term rentals and kind of narrowing down some of the investment opportunity, which again has then limited inventory because there's less turnover, which then continues to still increase prices. So really, we're starting to see that turnover. The people that are really buying houses along the coast now, really it's second homes, third homes. It's the landing pad for the summer because we have incredible weather here at the Oregon coast during the summertime. And then also people that are consolidating maybe 2 or 3 properties, Portland Metro, Seattle, Southern California, and then they're springing for that dream home that they always had of being on the beach. And we say, Oregon, we're thinking 3 million is a ton of money, which again, it's no small price tag. However, if you took any of these homes and put them in San Diego or on any other coastline in California, we're talking 14, 16, $20 million properties, even though they're, still 2,600 square feet. So Nationwide, our coastal property is still affordable. However, if you've been here for 10, 15 years, there's still a little bit of sticker shock when you look at those homes that are they're on the beach.
That is a really good perspective, actually, because yeah, I mean, when we do think about some of these other markets, especially along California, it's just like these are bargain prices. And also, I mean, if you compare just walking on the beach, with the Oregon coast in comparison, I think the Oregon coast is going to beat it every single time, right? I mean, you literally feel like you are in a piece of paradise. When you are on the Oregon coast, it is just something that's amazing. Or you can, of course, so appreciate Mother Nature anyway. And what's amazing is even though there's all this growth, it still maintains this local charm, which I find fascinating. Every single time I go, yes, there's growth, but it's not like crazy. It still feels, oh, like you've just gotten away into a small little community. What's community life like? What's it like living on the coast?
Yeah, so I mean, along the Oregon coast, each town really has its own personality, and I think that the starting point obviously is going to be amenities. Having a walkable downtown. We look at towns like Bay City. Manzanita has a small walkable downtown, but we're talking about a couple of blocks. So really, you kind of break the cities into ones that operate year round, such as Astoria, Lincoln City down south. And then we get into a little bit more seasonal, which is going to be more your Seasides, your Cannon Beach, although just the demand has the coast is still busy on a Wednesday in those towns as well nowadays too. But then you get to small communities like Rockaway. They're very seasonal. They service kind of the main cities that are surrounding. So we have a pretty good mix. But I will say that if you drive one town north or south, you're going to get a different living experience. And that is really, one of the things that we work with buyers and sellers coming here, and it's a big education process. Of most people want to say, hey, I want to be in Cannon Beach, no matter what. It's kind of opening that insight and going, okay, well, Fred Meyer's 35 minutes away. These other things are a little ways away. It might be good for vacation. And that, kind of starts to look at other towns that are surrounding. And there's still plenty of opportunity at the Oregon coast as well.
I love the insight you just provided because really, like somebody who's thinking about, buying a home on the Oregon coast, and of course their experience was Cannon Beach. They stayed at a hotel or an Airbnb or something along that line, and they're like, "We want to buy a house," and so they contact their local friend, and maybe they have an agent, right, a broker in Portland. And they're like, oh yeah, I go there all the time too, and so I can show you the properties. And this is not to say that that's the wrong thing to do, but there is definitely something to be said about local brokers, local agents in essence, right? Who have so much more insight to that hyper local market and all the markets. Can you give me a little bit of that insight basically, right? When you actually, kind of like really work the market there, that is kind of like where you've grown up or you just know all the nooks and crannies. I mean, is there a difference?
Yeah, there absolutely is a difference, and the Oregon coast right now is in a growth phase. So it's this transitional period between our city council and Seaside here. We can still go, talk to the planning department. There's 4 people that work there. We know them by name, and they're trying to solve big city problems when it comes to short-term rentals, zoning, new construction. There's some pretty big problems that they're facing. So there is a transition still between kind of the small town feel with big time opportunity. So when people go to the market, they come to Seaside. I mean, our ordinance for short-term rentals can change monthly. So that's where having the local agent knowledge, and it's really specific by neighborhood, distance from other properties. And we don't necessarily have, or the cities don't necessarily have the technology to where you can just go online and all that information is going to be accurate. So having local relationships with city planners really also helps get an idea of, okay, where are they wanting to go with the city. So if you're purchasing a house, even though it might be rentable today, local agents are going to have the knowledge of the city council is probably trying to get different zoning in a certain neighborhood. Maybe it's not a great spot to have a long-term investment. So people can end up getting blindsided if they don't really have that local knowledge. So that's where I do see the big differentiator of having the local agent expertise, for an out-of-town buyer, basically.
I think if you're an agent, if you're a broker, partnering with somebody like Jordan or somebody on his team, over there in the Seaside office, that could be a really, really good approach as well, because it's not just about the actual transaction standpoint; it's about after, right? So let's say they buy the house, right, and everything is all done, but they're like, well, now we need a contractor, or now we need to do this or to do that. I mean, it's kind of rare that you're just going to be buying a completely move-in ready. It's all like you got to do nothing else. I mean, there's always those things that come up, and especially people from the city. It's just like, wait a minute, this isn't on sewer, or like there might be a whole series of other issues, right? Or just insights that a local expert can provide. So I know that is definitely something that you do a lot with your team there on the coast. You work and partner with other realtors from all over the nation, actually around the around the world, really, for that matter. So that is really great. I mean, any thoughts there?
Yeah, well, I mean, really, that is, you kind of hit the nail on the head of having that local expertise. I mean, that's really, with it being in such a growth phase and things changing so rapidly. Between the agents at our office, I've actually delegated a couple of the agents to really stay up to date with in certain areas, specifically the short-term rentals, one of the big ones. Also, expansion of highways is something that really impacts properties and property lines. So we do have agents that specialize in different areas. The condo market here at the coast is also very unique in how they get sold in the process of buying those. So we have an agent that specializes really in each one of those primary areas of confusion that we've kind of identified here. It can definitely bring light to buyers or sellers looking to do something on the coast.
You're bringing up so many amazing topics that we can go into, but yeah, we got to move on because I mean, there's so many interesting other things to talk about. Namely, the fact that number one, you were a firefighter and you actually started, I mean, and you live locally and, you kind of, again, service everywhere from Portland all the way, to the coast. You're an educator. You've got this amazing local background. But somewhere along that line, because of your background and expertise and relationships, those people who we talked about Astoria earlier, you may have seen this movie called Goonies, right? And Goonies has, of course, this amazing cult following. And one of the kids was recently like featured, with Everything Everywhere All at Once. And, so like there's just this amazing just kind of background and history with this Goonies, an Astoria house. And you, my friend, are the one who's famous kind of at the local level because you listed and you sold the Goonies house. Can you give us a little insight there?
Well, we say local level, but we ended up selling it to a great out of state buyer that was a super fan of the Goonies. So I got to thank John L. Scott for our national presence there and making sure the property got all the exposure it could. But yeah, what a unique experience to get to be able to really experience the national news circuit as well as the local news circuit, and the relationships and contacts that came from that have really opened my eyes to one, the community of Goonies out there is incredibly large and supportive, and it's an amazing group of people that personally I never knew the real extent of how many of them existed. It's amazing. But also just the amount of people that are interested in the Oregon coast, whether it's the Goonies house or another property. It does seem like the Oregon coast is on kind of the national presence and top of mind for some folks.
Well, what's really cool about this, and this is for like people who are in real estate. I mean, the thing that we talk about all the time in leadership is when you have a listing, not just the Goonies house, right? But any listing, it's such an opportunity to just have more conversations, right? Be able to market and create exposure and talk to the neighbors, and because every home is unique. Obviously, the Goonies one is extremely unique, so we'll have to like do a deeper dive down the road. But I know from this listing, you've had other opportunities, other sales, other listings, in particular around Astoria. And people are now discovering, like, oh, wait a minute, just north of the coast that they kind of traditionally know, they drive through Astoria oftentimes, but they actually haven't really taken a look at the city of Astoria. And some of the views, the higher you go, oh my gosh, and the bridge, and it's just, there's a 360 view as you go to the very peak of Astoria. It is this amazing community and town. And I recently got the opportunity to tour one of the most unique homes I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of homes, a lot of unique homes, a lot of luxury homes. And I will say this is one of the most unique homes I've ever seen. And it's under $3 million. And it's got a 360 view and the intricate. I mean, we could talk, of course, like for an hour just about this listing, but give us a little insight to this amazing listing that you've recently taken in Astoria.
Yeah, so coming from the Goonies opportunity, really, I got contacted by another seller that was in Astoria that had an extremely unique house. By my records, it's the largest home that's on the Oregon coast, technically. It's over 12,000 square feet. and that's not including the indoor pool that it has or all of the attached garages. So it's quite the unique property. They decided to hire us and bring us on, and me specifically, to sell the property because of the uniqueness of the Goonies situation, the contacts that came from that as well. But yeah, it's 7 Skyline Place, one of the most spectacular homes that I've ever been in. From some of the showings we had from buyers from Southern California, they agree it's a 20-25 million dollar house if it was put on the California coast. So it's quite the property there.
I mean, again, we'll just put the link of this property in, below, but it is truly something worth taking a look at, and the chances are pretty good you might know somebody, right? So if you're listening to this and you're curious about, the Oregon coast, and you were like, oh, I've got maybe a client, or I've always wanted to maybe have a house on the coast, and yeah, knowing that, it's going to go up to 3 million or past 3 million, but to have the most amazing home possibly in the entire Oregon coast, right, for under 3 million with this kind of square footage, where you could probably have, I don't know, 5 families. I mean, multi-generational. You can live in one of the suites, and of course, like, possibly rent out the other. I mean, there's so much to go into there, but we just want to mention the fact that, if you are thinking about the coast, don't just think about Seaside, Cannon Beach, which are amazing. Also be thinking north, like Astoria, also south. Any last insights that you want to share about whether it's the listing, the city of Astoria, the Oregon coast, Jordan?
Yeah, well, that's where I really encourage any agents or anyone thinking of purchasing a home on the coast. The more time that we have to be able to work with you and be able to talk through the buying process and get you familiar with towns along the coast, the better. So we really, in our agents here, we have a program of where if you have a buyer or someone that's looking to sell on the coast, primarily buying on the coast, if they reach out to us a year and a half in advance, it really helps us clarify what they're looking for, where they want to live, what their lifestyle looks like. Because, like as me and you have talked about before, Howard, nobody really buys a home. What they're doing is they're buying a place where they can walk directly onto the beach. They're buying a place where they can walk downtown and go for an evening stroll and enjoy a nice glass of Pinot. They're buying that lifestyle is what we're really looking for. So there's no shame in reaching out a year and a half in advance and not feeling any pressure to buy that minute. Put the plan in place, work with our agents to learn the area, and then buy the dream home. Don't go buy the dream home and then have to sell it a couple years later, just because you decided, oh, I want to move, 10 miles south.
I love this, Jordan. I mean, I know so often, right? Like, people will, like, they'll pool money and they'll spend, like $5,000 a night on some of these nice homes. I've done that before. It's just like, okay, and they're amazing, but they're not even necessarily that big. This particular listing, I mean, there's just so many opportunities. And again, just thinking about other towns, other nooks and crannies, the coast is vast. And I would love to additionally talk to you next time about Willamette Valley, possibly, right, as we get a little bit closer to wine country. And if you like Pinots, in particular Pinot Noirs, I mean, there's just amazing opportunities also a little ways from the coast. I mean, within an hour, but now all of a sudden you are going from coast to some of the most amazing wine country, and that market extremely well. So we're gonna have to talk about that market our next podcast. But Jordan, I just want to thank you for your insights today. You've just shared so much. And so if you're curious about the Oregon coast market, the Portland market, basically Portland West or Willamette Valley, wine country, Jordan Miller and his team, they're available. John L. Scott Seaside. You can visit them at seasidemarket.johnlscott.com. Get in touch with Jordan. And again, Jordan, thank you so much for just sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.